In Britain today, retirement does not arrive as neatly as it once did. There was a time when people talked about retiring at 60 or 65, as if those numbers were nailed to the kitchen wall. You worked, you reached the age, the pension came, and life moved into a different rhythm. Slower maybe, not always easier, but at least the shape of it made sense. That is not quite how it feels now. For many people in the UK, the state pension age is moving from 66 to 67 between 2026 and 2028. Some people who thought retirement was almost at the front door are finding there is still a bit more corridor to walk down. And when the state pension does arrive, the amount is not the same for everyone. In 2026 to 2027, the full new state pension is £241.30 a week. But that is the full amount. Not everybody gets it. It depends on national insurance years, gaps in the record, whether someone was contracted out before 2016, and which pension system they fall under. For the new state pension, you usually need at least 10 qualifying years to get anything at all. Around 35 qualifying years are normally needed for the full new state pension. People on the older basic state pension system have different rules, and the full basic state pension in 2026 to 2027 is £184.90 a week. So the modern pensioner is living in a strange place. There is more information than ever, more protections, more support if you know where to look. More letters as well, which nobody asked for, but here they are, arriving through the door with the confidence of a man who owns the hallway. And yet a person can work all their life, reach retirement age, and still not feel completely sure what they are owed, what they can claim, what they should check, or why the money seems thinner by the third week of the month. That is why today's video is not about clever tricks. It is about boring habits. The kind of habits nobody bragged about. Nobody dressed up as a strategy. Nobody called them wealth systems or put them on a chart with a cheerful arrow going up. They were plain, almost dull. But dull can be useful. A lock on a back door is dull too, until the night you are glad it is there. If you are new here, I am Paolo. On this channel, we look at UK pensions, retirement money, old British money habits, DWP, HMRC, household bills, savings, pension credit, and the small financial decisions that can quietly change life in retirement. And today, we are talking about the subject you saw in the title: 10 boring money habits that quietly saved retirees. Now, I do not mean that the past was perfect. It was not. Some homes were cold. Some pensions were small. Some people had to stretch a week so far it could have applied for a job as elastic. But the old habits had something useful inside them. They made money harder to waste. That matters in 2026, because the modern retirement system is not only expensive, it is also complicated. Money lives through bills, renewals, direct debits, insurance, rent, energy, food, council tax, care costs, phone contracts, and little payments that look harmless until they start bringing friends. So let's begin with the first habit. The first habit is this: they kept their lifestyle deliberately plain. That sounds almost too simple to mention, but stay with me. A lot of older British households did not treat plain living as failure. They treated it as normal. A clean coat was enough. A decent pair of shoes was enough. A chair did not need replacing because it had become unfashionable. If it still held a person, without making any threatening noises, it stayed. The house did not need to impress visitors. The curtains did not need to announce prosperity to the street. People cared what neighbors thought, of course, Britain has never suffered from a shortage of quiet judgment behind lace curtains. But showing off with money was not usually the goal. Many retirees survived because they did not keep raising the cost of being themselves. That is the phrase I want you to hold. The cost of being yourself. In 2026, that cost can creep up without much ceremony. A better phone package, a slightly nicer supermarket habit, a car kept for convenience when buses might do, insurance extras, more takeaways because cooking feels tiring, a subscription here, a little upgrade there. None of these things are evil. Life should have comfort in it. Retirement should not feel like a punishment with a kettle. But plain living gave older households a useful boundary. They knew when enough was enough. Not because they were miserable, because they had seen how quickly just a little better becomes, why is the bank account coughing like that? A deliberately plain life is not a poor life. Sometimes it is a protected one. The second habit is closely related. They repaired things before replacing them. A shirt lost a button, someone sewed it. A chair leg went loose, someone tightened it. A kettle, a radio, a bicycle, a pair of shoes, a winter coat. Things were expected to last long enough to become slightly annoying members of the family. Now, let's be fair. Some of this was necessity. If you did not have spare money, you repaired because replacement was not an option. Nobody was standing in a 1960s kitchen saying, "I am embracing sustainable consumption." They were saying, "Where did I put the screwdriver?" But the habit saved money because it created a pause. Something broke, and the first question was not, "What new thing shall I buy?" The first question was, "Can this be made useful again?" That question still matters. In 2026, replacement is easier. Too easy sometimes. A small appliance breaks. A chair looks tired. A coat zip sticks. Something starts making a noise it did not make before, which is never a comforting development. And because buying is quick, the old pause disappears. For pensioners, this can become expensive. Repairs are not always worth it, especially when modern items are made in a way that seems to dislike being opened. But the habit is still useful. Check first. Could it be repaired? Could a neighbor help? Is there a local repair shop? Is the replacement actually needed now, or is it just the easiest answer because the kettle is already testing everyone's patience? The older generation often bought fewer things and kept them working. That is not glamorous. But plenty of retirements have been protected by things that were not glamorous. The third habit is this. They avoided showing off money. This one is more important than it looks. In many older households, money was private. People might talk about the price of butter, the cost of coal, or the scandal of what the butcher had charged for a bit of lamb, but they did not usually announce savings, pensions, or family finances to everyone who asked. There was a quiet boundary around money. Part of that came from pride. Part of it came from manners. Part of it came from common sense. If you had a little put away, you did not need the whole street knowing. If you were struggling, you did not always want the whole street knowing that either. Today, this habit has become even more useful. Because in 2026, older people are targeted by scams, pressure, emotional manipulation, and very polished nonsense. A pensioner who talks too freely about savings, inheritance, pension income, or recent lump sum may attract attention from the wrong sort of person. Sometimes the pressure is not even criminal. It can be family pressure, social pressure, a friend who always needs rescuing, a relative with a plan, a person who says, "It is only temporary, with the confidence of someone who has not brought a repayment date with them. Being private about money is not being cold. It is keeping the front door of your financial life on the latch. Now, before we move to the fourth habit, I want to stop for a moment. Because you might be thinking, Paulo, why are we talking about these old boring habits in 2026? Why does it matter how someone lived plainly, repaired a chair, or kept quiet about money? It matters because many pensioners in Britain today are not struggling because they are foolish. They are struggling because retirement has become harder to read. Age UK reported in 2026 that 3.4 million pensioners in Great Britain, more than 1 in 4, said they were struggling financially. Around 1.7 million older people were living in relative low-income poverty after housing costs in 2024 to 2025. That is not a small problem tucked away somewhere. That is a lot of quiet kitchens. A lot of people opening bills slowly. A lot of people telling their children they are fine when the heating has been on less than it should. Some older people still rent. Some live with family because renting alone would be too much. Some own a home, but the house eats money through repairs, council tax, insurance, and energy bills. Some have a small private pension, just enough to complicate the paperwork, but not enough to make life feel secure. And some people keep working beyond the age they hoped to stop. Not because they adore the early bus, aching knees, and a packed lunch in a plastic box. They keep working because the pension alone does not stretch the way they imagined. That is why these habits matter. They are not magic. I would never insult you by pretending that sewing a button or keeping a biscuit tin can solve a national cost of living problem. But these habits did something important. They stopped money from becoming invisible. In 2026, the danger is often not one dramatic mistake. It is 100 small leaks, a direct debit nobody checks, a renewal that rises every year, a benefit not claimed because someone assumes they will not qualify, a savings account paying less than it should, a heating bill that makes someone choose between comfort and debt. So when I talk about boring money habits, I am not talking about being old-fashioned for the sake of it. I am talking about survival skills, quiet ones. Right, let's go back to the fourth habit. The fourth habit is this. They stayed loyal to routines, not companies. That distinction matters. Older British households often had routines. Market on Thursday, pension collected on a certain day, rent handled before anything else, call money kept separate, the big shop done after checking what was already in the cupboard, a bill opened before it joined the pile, because once a paper entered the pile, it could settle there like it had signed a lease. Those routines protected people. But loyalty to a routine is different from loyalty to a company. A lot of pensioners today stay with the same insurer, the same bank, the same phone provider, the same energy supplier, the same broadband company, simply because changing feels like trouble. And yes, sometimes staying put is sensible. Switching everything every 5 minutes can turn a household into a small administrative circus. Still, old loyalty can become expensive when companies reward new customers and quietly leave older customers on worse deals. Your grandparents may have stayed loyal to the local shopkeeper because he knew them, treated them fairly, and looked them in the eye. A modern company may use the word loyalty in a letter while charging you more than the person who arrived last Tuesday. So the habit is not change everything. The habit is keep the routine, question the company. Once a year, ask what you are paying. Ask if there is a better rate. Ask if the old package still fits your life. If they say no, fine, at least you looked. If they say yes, you may find money that was sitting there wearing a very boring disguise. The fifth habit is this. They treated debt like bad weather. Something to avoid if possible. Something to respect. Something that could trap you if you walked into it without a coat. Older generations were not all debt-free saints. People borrowed. They owed money. They used catalogs, rent books, hire purchase, loans from family, arrangements with shops. Life was messy then too. But many retirees grew up with a deep caution around owing money. Debt was not treated as a lifestyle tool. It was treated as a problem that could grow legs. That caution matters now because borrowing has become easier, smoother, and less embarrassing. A payment plan can look harmless. A credit card can soften the pain of a bill. Buy now, pay later can make a purchase feel smaller than it is. Overdrafts can sit there quietly, charging away. For a pensioner on a fixed income, debt is especially dangerous because next month's income is usually not going to leap up and rescue the situation. There may be times when borrowing is unavoidable. A boiler breaks, a roof leaks, a health need appears. Life does not always ask permission before becoming expensive. But the old habit says, be slow with debt. Read it, understand the repayment, know what it will do to next month before it solves this month. The sixth habit is this: they bought fewer things, but used them properly. This is different from being cheap. Cheap can waste money. A bad coat bought twice is not cheaper than a good coat bought once. A weak pair of shoes that gives up before winter has properly introduced itself is not a bargain. Older households often understood that. They were careful with use. A good pan was used for years. A coat was brushed and hung properly. Shoes were polished. Tools were put back. Furniture was covered, repaired, moved carefully, lived with. In 2026, one of the quiet leaks in retirement is buying too many half-useful things. Kitchen gadgets, little comforts, storage boxes for things nobody needed to buy, clothes that fill the wardrobe but never solve the problem of what to wear, cheap items that break and create another trip, another order, another small spend. The old habit was not glamorous. Use what you have, use it properly, finish the jar before buying another. Wear the decent cardigan instead of buying one more because the shop lighting was persuasive. Keep the good umbrella somewhere findable, which is apparently the hard part. A pension stretches further when the house is not constantly asking for new things. The seventh habit is this: they kept one quiet reserve nobody touched. Not an investment strategy, not a clever portfolio, just a small reserve. The old rainy day money. Sometimes it was in a savings account, sometimes in a post office book, sometimes in a tin, an envelope, or a place so secret that after a few years even the owner had to think for a moment. That reserve was not for everyday spending, it was for the thing that arrived without knocking. A repair, a funeral trip, a broken appliance, a winter bill, a family emergency. Something with bad timing, because emergencies have never been known for their manners. For pensioners today, this habit still matters, but it needs a modern version. Emergency money should be boring, safe, and reachable. Not hidden so well that nobody can find it. Not locked away in a way that causes panic. Not mixed with everyday spending where it slowly disappears on ordinary costs. And not placed somewhere risky because someone promised a miracle return over the phone. The point of emergency money is not to make you rich. It is to stop a bad week from becoming a bad year. Even a small reserve can protect dignity. It gives a person room to breathe before making a rush decision. And rush decisions are where money often gets hurt. The eighth habit is this: they shared tools, favors, and small help with neighbors. This is one we do not talk about enough. Older communities often had informal economies. A ladder borrowed, a lift to the shops, someone checking a letter, someone watching the house, a neighbor with a toolbox, a cousin who could mend something, A friend who knew which shop was fair and which one would charge you like the Queen had personally requested the repair. Not everything had to be bought. That saved money, but it also reduced panic. In 2026, many pensioners are more isolated. Families live farther away. Neighbors may not know each other. Local shops and bank branches have closed in many places. A lot of support has moved to phones, websites, and forms. So rebuilding small, trustworthy help matters. I am not saying share private financial details with everyone on the street. Please do not turn the bus stop into a pension seminar. But having one or two trusted people who can help read a letter, compare a bill, check a form, look at a repair quote, or sit with you while you phone a company can save real money. The old habit was simple. Do not pay for isolation if a safe bit of community can help. The ninth habit is this. They knew which expenses made life harder later. This is a very grown-up habit. Some purchases feel good today and become annoying later. A cheap appliance that eats electricity. A car that gives freedom but drains money through insurance, repairs, and fuel. A bigger home that looks comfortable but costs too much to heat. A pet, a subscription, a club, a service, a loan to family, a little treat that becomes a regular payment. The older generation often had a sharp eye for future trouble. They might not have used fancy language, but they understood burden. A thing was not only judged by its price, it was judged by what it would demand afterward. That is a powerful retirement habit. Before taking on any new cost, ask what it will want from you next month, and the month after. Will it need maintenance, insurance, electricity, transport, more payments, more paperwork? Will it make life easier enough to deserve its place? Some spending is worth it. Comfort matters. Safety matters. Joy matters too. A retirement with no small pleasures is just budgeting with worse lighting. But the old habit says, do not buy only the first day of the thing. Buy the future days as well. If those future days look heavy, pause. The 10th habit may be the most useful one. They let money sit before making big decisions. This sounds so plain, but it saved people. A large purchase, a loan to someone, a new appliance, a holiday, a change of bank account, a repair quote, a private pension decision, a savings product, a promise from a company, a family request that arrives with emotion attached. The old habit was to wait, sleep on it, make tea, put the paper on the table, ask someone sensible, read it again when you are less tired. See if it still feels right tomorrow. This is not hesitation, it is protection. Scams hate waiting. Bad deals hate waiting. Emotional pressure hates waiting. Even ordinary overspending loses some of its power when it has to survive until morning. In 2026, this habit is vital. A pensioner may be pushed by urgency, limited time offers, renewal deadlines, family need, sales calls, online messages, letters that sound official, forms that feel frightening. A person can be rushed into deciding before they have properly understood the cost. So here is a simple modern version. If the decision is big, let it sit. If someone says it must be done today, be extra careful. If a company pressures you, slow down. If a family member needs help, give yourself time to think clearly. If a letter worries you, do not ignore it, but do not panic either. Open it, read it, place it somewhere visible, and get help if needed. Waiting is not weakness. Sometimes waiting is the only reason money survives. So those are the 10 boring habits. Plain living, repairing before replacing, keeping money private, loyalty to routines, not companies, caution with debt, buying fewer things and using them properly, keeping a quiet reserve, using trustworthy help, thinking about future costs, letting money sit before big decisions. None of these habits sound exciting. That is almost the point. Exciting money habits often look wonderful at the start and expensive at the end. Boring habits do their work quietly. They do not clap for themselves. They just keep the household standing. And for UK pensioners today, that matters. Because retirement in 2026 is not simple. The state pension rules are more complicated than many people expect. The cost of living is still pressing on older households. Energy bills, rent, council tax, insurance, food and care costs can make even careful people feel as if the month is getting shorter. The lesson from the older generation is not that we should go back. Nobody sensible wants to bring back cold rooms, tiny pensions, and the kind of washing machine that sounded like it was trying to escape. The lesson is better than that. Make money harder to waste. Make decisions slower. Keep life plain where plain is enough. Protect the reserve. Ask when something looks wrong. And do not let the modern system turn your money invisible. If this video helped, consider subscribing. On this channel, we take all British money habits and translate them for the retirement system people are living with now. Before you go, I want to ask you something. Which boring money habit did your mother, father, grandparents, or an older neighbor live by? Was it repairing everything? Keeping money private? Never borrowing unless they had no choice? Keeping a little reserve? Or refusing to replace anything until it had practically written a resignation letter? Write it in the comments. I read them, and often the best lessons here come from what people remember from real kitchens, real bills, and real lives. Until next time, take care of yourself, keep the kettle warm, and give your money a little time to sit before the world tries to spend it for you.